leader with great passion and few skills always outperforms a leader with great skills and no passion. This is another quote from John C. Maxwell, this time, though, from the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. John Maxwell he loves his numbers, I guess. 21, 17, 5, whatever. He's probably done every number. But we talked a lot in our last episode. If you haven't checked that out, I highly encourage you to do so. But we talked a lot about leadership as it relates to sort of the innate qualities within us. We talked about authenticity and perseverance and care, and we were discussing how those things are sort of the foundation of great leadership. Your title doesn't really matter, but when you have those things, especially for the people around you and for the thing that you are leading, people will follow you. Today, though, we're going to talk more about the practical side of it and the skills a leader needs to develop in order to show that authenticity, to show that passion, to show, the care. Because as the quote says, you can have all kinds of skills, but if you're not displaying it with a level of passion, it's really going to not work.
Right.
Fall flat.
Right.
So, Brian, I know especially that you care about, we're going to do similar format, cover sort of 4 of these skills, if you will, how to do these things. I'm speaking out of turn, so correct me publicly for the listeners.
Okay. All right.
But you have vision on this list.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is the thing.
Yeah.
You would maybe put a slight edge above.
Oh, it's
rest.
number one. If you don't have this, you're done.
So why don't we start with that?
Yeah.
I gave away the bit a little bit. But,
it's okay.
It's okay. That's all right.
So passion, when Maxwell talks about passion, I'd rather have what he says is essentially passion trumps skill.
Right.
Okay. He's right. And you have to answer the question, well, what passion about what? It's always passion about what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Which gets to vision. But let's just deal with the foundation of it. Whatever it is that you want to do or are excited about doing, you have to have inside of you, there has to be this burning about it.
Right.
If you don't have that, people will see it. So then if you think about what we did last week, people, you can be, the real you, the genuine you. You can show up and care about people around you. You can be present in the organization. You can persevere through hard times. But if what you're doing, you're just shrugging your shoulders at, hey, tell me about what are you trying to accomplish? And you go,
right.
We're doing some, kind of good stuff. Nobody wants to be a part of that.
Right.
Most people want to be a part of something that matters and is making a difference, even in the for-profit sector.
Right.
We brought people onto our team who worked for organizations and they secular outside of the church organizations. And when you asked them about what their company did, they were completely unexcited about it. And so people want to be a part of something that they know it matters in some way, which could be a very profitable, company. It doesn't have to be like, just the nonprofit world.
Right.
And the leader has to have excitement and passion about what it is they're trying to accomplish. If you don't have that, you're done.
Well, and you're probably not going to even exhibit the things we talked about in the last episode, at least not authentically.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to be less willing to persevere.
That's the one. That's the one that you really wouldn't do. If you didn't care, you're not going to persevere when times get hard.
And another Maxwell quote that I think leads into what you're saying is, he says, leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're passionate about it, but you need to help other people.
That's right.
Catch the passion or the vision. So let's talk about vision.
So the bottom line is you can't accomplish anything great by yourself. I used to say at our church, I'll do this by myself if I have to, but I would really prefer not to. And that I meant it. But the truth is you could only get so far without some other people around you. And the way that you attract them, how they're bought in, aside from the qualities that we talked about last time, which are required, the essence of it is you have to have a vision for what it is you're trying to accomplish. And this has been really fun for me over the years. I have coached many people inside and outside of our church about their vision. And I mean from businesses, people who are trying to launch new things, start new ministries, and then of course inside the church. This happens a lot. So I say vision requires 3 things. It has to be clear, it has to be concise, and it has to be compelling.
Yeah.
clear, concise, and compelling. And people miss all of these things. So if you ask someone, hey, what's the vision for what you're trying to accomplish? And a vision, by the way, is a picture of what it looks like.
Yeah.
So tell me what it is you're trying to accomplish. If they ramble on, they might have passion about it. But if they ramble on and when they're done talking, you're like, yeah, I can see you're excited. I just have no idea what you just said.
Yeah.
Then they lack clarity.
Right.
They're not able to articulate it clearly. Maybe it's clear in their head, but they're not able to get it out that way. So I often help a leader refine their vision to something that is clear.
Yeah.
It also has to be concise. People these days have a short attention span. No, most people do not want the full business plan presentation. They want in order for you to sort of bait the hook, you have got to give me something that is concise.
Yeah.
No one starts out as a massive conglomerate. So maybe if you're talking to the people at Apple or if you're talking to GE or someplace like that, then their vision statement is 20 pages. I don't know.
Right.
But most of the time, if you're, for leaders like me, leading relatively small or medium-sized organizations, we have to have a concise vision. I need to be able to tell people what we're doing in a very clear, concise way. And that's easy for us because our church, lots of churches get this really muddled, by the way, because they put some flowery language around the Great Commission. In case our listener doesn't know, Jesus said that we were to go into all nations and make disciples of all people.
Yeah.
Essentially that's the Great Commission. We were to go get them. Right. Well, so the church you'll say, well, what is your church trying to accomplish? And sometimes a pastor or a leader will look at you like you've got three heads. Like, well, how do you not? Of course, we're trying to accomplish the Great Commission.
Right.
But when it boils down to it, nobody knows what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So at our church, we worked really hard to say, what we feel deeply passionate about is reaching people who don't go to church. Our segment of the Great Commission is we reach people who don't go to church, so that all of us can achieve the fullest lives possible in Jesus.
Yeah. Both
the person who we hope to reach and those of us who are also already here. So we're very clear about our what
mm-hmm.
we're trying to accomplish. And in doing so, we're able to be concise about it. Everyone around here knows what we're trying to accomplish. They can say what we're trying to accomplish. And then finally, the third component is it has to be compelling.
Yeah.
It has to actually matter.
Right.
I've met with people who I've met with lots of leaders who come to me and say, I had one person come one time from another church, and it was this guy, and he was in children's ministry, and he said, I keep asking these volunteers to serve, and nobody says yes, and I said, well, give me your mission statement, give me your pitch. I said, give me your pitch,
Right.
And he was like, well, okay, I'll give it to you. And so he talked for a while. Anyway, when he was done, I leaned up. I was like, man, that really sucked. I mean, that was awful. And I just named it. And then I helped him to say, and I think this is important, what the details of what your ministry does is not the why.
Right.
It's not the why.
Right.
So if you're in student ministry and you say, well, I asked a volunteer, and I'll say to them, well, what is your volunteer trying to accomplish? He said, well, they're just trying to accomplish, I just need them to pick up pizzas.
Right.
And I say, that's not what they're doing. He says, sure it is. I gave them the debit card. They went down to the pizza place and they drove them back. Yeah. They're picking up pizzas. That's what they're doing. I said, that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is changing the trajectory of a kid's life. Some of these kids are in homes that are a mess. This is the only place that they can find peace, and they're connecting with God here. You are literally changing their future, which means you're changing their children's future. This is not about pizza.
Yeah.
I've had other people starting new ministries come, and we had the same conversation. If they trust me, they'll sit down with me, and I'll say, your vision's got to be clear, concise, and compelling. Make me the pitch. They'll make it to me. I'll say, that was awful, and then, which they usually know.
Right.
And then I'll say, let me help you.
For help.
That's why they're asking for help. Let me help you understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, because the details of the job description are not the why.
Right.
And the why is the vision. It has to be clear, concise, and compelling. It is a critical skill that most leaders miss. And if you don't get this right, you're dead in the water. You can't move forward without being able to articulate clear, concise, compelling vision for your movement or your organization.
And also being able to do it in a way that continues to engage people and get excited over, a long arc of time.
That's right.
We say all the time around here, vision leaks.
Vision leaks.
So you have to not only be able to give clear, concise, and compelling vision, but you have to be able to do it again and again and again.
And let me say, this is so frustrating for me. And it's something I continue to learn as a leader. Maybe I shouldn't be frustrated. Maybe this is part of my leadership growth point. But I'll sit in a room with people and cast clear, concise, compelling vision. I think this is one of the skills that I've developed pretty well, and I'm pretty good at it. And people get excited and they're nodding their heads with me. And 6 months later, I'll do the same talk. And some of those same people will say, "Man, that was amazing. I've never heard anything like that before." And I'm like, "Yes, you have. You were here."
Yeah.
But vision leaks, and I keep reminding. And every time I go to do this, Elijah, we do a vision talk at our church two, sometimes 3 times a year. And every time I get in my head and I think to myself, "Man, everyone at church today is going to roll their eyes. They're all going to say, 'Oh my gosh, how many times do I have to hear this speech?'" And every time people are like, "That was amazing, and I'm so excited about our church." And I'm like, how did you forget? It was just 6 months ago we talked about this. But it's because vision leaks.
Right.
And so the leader, I have heard it, I've heard others say, you cast vision and cast vision and cast vision, and when you think you've cast it enough, you cast it some more.
Right.
So it's just this is a critical part of being a leader. You can't just do this once. This is an ongoing thing.
Absolutely. I mean, there are plenty of times where we get to like Wednesday and I'm like, what did we just do Sunday?
That's exactly right.
And I work here.
Many times.
Full time. So
well, it was my message and I did it.
Yeah, right.
And I'm still going, what was it we talked about on Sunday?
Yeah.
Part of that is because next Sunday is
prepping
always
for the
right
next
around the
one
corner.
and all
Right,
that.
right.
But people are doing that in their lives.
That's right.
Like just with the kids and their schedules and their jobs and all the things.
That's right.
It happens.
And that's why. And that's why
you got to do it. Yeah.
Reminding me about that is actually helpful because, people have lives other than they're part of the church, right?
Right.
Or whatever the organization is. And so it's easy to forget. Plus you get into the problems of it, which is last week we talked about perseverance. So when you get into the weeds of it, the people that are part of your organization, whether you're a company and you're producing something, or you're in real estate, or you're in the church world, or you're in whatever, people get into the weeds of what they're doing. They start out saying, "Oh, I know why I'm assembling these food bags," and then a month or two goes by and they're just assembling food bags,
right?
And because they're in the details of it. And so at our church, we do this thing called VIP. And sometimes we do it well, and sometimes we do it not as well. But the point of it is to get your volunteers together pretty much every time you serve.
Yeah.
And to say, "Let me remind you why we're doing what we're doing." Somebody's life is about to change today.
Yeah.
And it's going to change because you decided to get up on your only day off when you could have slept in or gone to the beach or cut the grass, and you decided to come in and serve while you're checking the bathrooms and making sure the bathroom counters aren't gummed up with soap, and while you're checking toilets, and while you're checking in kids, and while you're flagging people in the parking lot. Just make sure you remember, it isn't just about clean bathrooms and cars that don't have an accident. This is about making sure that people have the best chance possible to connect with God and have an experience that will produce life change today. That's why you're here.
That's what you're doing.
And so we do it every week, and it's to sort of keep the flame hot and keep reminding people why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We could probably do a whole series on vision.
We probably should.
We probably will at some point. But we got to move on from vision now. So skills you got to develop. Start with vision. Next one.
All right. The next one is called I call it making the ask, which particularly in a podcast where you're not doing video, it's so important that we get the diction right on this.
Yeah.
I am making an ask. I'm capable of the other thing, by the way.
Sure.
Will not. Maybe that'll be a podcast for another day.
Yeah.
So once I have clear, concise, compelling vision, now I have to be able to sit down with someone and bring them with me.
Right.
In other words, I have to be able to make the ask. I have to be able to say, would you consider joining me in this movement? Now, this is something I I had to learn to do from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We launched our church, and this is not a joke. We had no people, no money, and no experience. None of us had ever planted a church before. We literally had zero funding at the very beginning, like as in no one had given any money. There was no money. We didn't even know where we were going to meet. It was literally it was as close to jumping off a cliff as you can get.
Yeah.
And I had to sit down with people and say, come with me. So the pathway to getting them to say yes, the first stop on the train is you have to have clear, concise, compelling vision. Some people will come with you just because you're you, but they're only going to do that for a very brief time.
Right.
You have to give them a reason other than you. And what we were going to do was we were going to reach people who didn't go to church, and we were going to help them know who Jesus is. And the people I was talking to, they could buy that. So then I had to sit down and say, would you come with me? And here's what I'm asking you to do. Now, in the beginning, the ask was everything.
Literally
everything. I'm asking you to come early on a Sunday and do anything. And whether it is in your skill set or your preference set, I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
If you don't like kids, suck it up.
Yeah.
If we need people and kids, you're going to have to serve there. If you don't like whatever, if it's cold and rainy outside and we need people in the parking lot, you got to be in the parking lot. And people said yes to that. So there's a process to making the ask.
Yeah.
And I teach this, there's a group of leaders I teach every year. We call them the Turbo Leadership Group. And we do a whole session on this. I'm going to just boil this down into a couple of pieces. The size of the ask dictates the where of the ask. So if I'm going to ask someone to serve in a short-term project, a one-time short-term project, and it's not very costly to them in terms of time or maybe resources, I might take them to a cup of coffee. I might even just do it on the phone.
Right.
But most of the asks I make, like I don't want to spend a chip and ask people for some low commitment thing.
Right.
I will if I feel like that's the only thing they'll say yes to. But what I really want to do is do the thing that Jesus did. Jesus never asked people to do some small thing.
Nope.
He basically said, here's my ask. Give up your whole life for me, and you'll gain life in return.
Yeah.
So I've learned to make bold asks. And when you make bold asks, no one bats 1,000. Sure. By the way, not even Jesus batted 1,000. Mm-hmm. When you make big asks, people say no. Not everyone, though. I don't need everyone to say yes.
Yeah.
I just need some of them to say yes. I asked a guy one time who was pretty wealthy, and I asked him to give $1 million to the church, quit his job, and come work for me for free, which I thought was pretty gutsy.
Yeah.
He said no, by the way.
Right.
But, I asked a guy one time to give his house, the house he lived in. Yeah. Asked him to give his house and his land to the church. I didn't really think about where he might live.
That was irrelevant.
I figured. But lots of the asks I have made, people have said yes to. If you're going to make a big ask, you owe that person the space to really think about it. And I want to treat the ask in an appropriate forum. So let me just set the record straight. I don't take anybody out to Ruth's Chris for dinner. I've never done that. Yeah. In case you don't know, it's a super nice translation, super expensive restaurant. Mm-hmm. I don't do that. Right. But I'm not going to take you to McDonald's. Sure. If I'm going to ask you to give $500,000 to the church. Right. That ask warrants a setting where I can really cast compelling vision. I also think that the ask requires that you give them the space to think. So what that means is once I put the ask on the table, I cast clear, compelling vision, and then I say, this is what I'm hoping that you'll consider today, and then I shut up. Yep. If you keep talking, you have said what you need to say. They will speak. Yeah. You just have to give them space to do it. And early in my career, I didn't understand that. And I just kept talking.
Just felt awkward.
It just felt awkward. And guys like me who have a lot of words, we don't do silence real well. So I just kept talking. And I talked people they were going to say yes. And I talked them into saying no. Yeah. Because I just wouldn't shut up. And when I say that, I'm not trying to be ugly. I literally mean stop talking. Don't say another word. I've learned to cast clear, compelling vision, make the bold ask, stop talking.
Yeah.
When the silence gets heavy enough, they'll say something. And what they say next will determine where you go. They might voice an objection, or they might ask a clarifying question, or many times I've had them just say, yeah, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that.
Yeah.
But you have to give them space to do it. If it's a sales job and they feel like, because everybody's been a part of a high pressure salesperson. Nobody appreciates that. I really don't appreciate that. And I'm not trying to be that.
Right.
Oh, by the way, when I make an ask, I always start out like this. And this is against the grain. A lot of people will tell you this is a terrible idea, but I've been successful with it. I always begin the ask conversation like this. I'll say, Elijah, thank you for meeting with me today. As I mentioned to you on the phone, I have an ask to make, and I want you to know up front it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you giving me the chance to at least make a compelling pitch to you, because I think this is something you're going to be interested in, and I know it's something that's going to matter.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, I've let the air out of the balloon. You know it's not high pressure because I just told you that it was okay to say no. And I've had many people come and say no, but more often than not, here's what I've found. People want to say yes to something.
Right.
So if I make a big ask, they often will come back and say, I can't do that, but I can do this. Now, in my role, it's not uncommon for me to be asking someone to make a substantial donation. And I've learned that if you ask too small, you make it easy to say yes. So I want to ask big. Mm-hmm. And let them come back and say, I asked a couple of years ago, I asked somebody to give us $500,000 for a project we were doing. And their answer was they took their time. They came back. They said, I can't do $500,000, but I can give you $100,000. What do you think? You know what my answer was, by the way?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But I could have gone in and said, can you contribute $50,000 to it? And he would have said yes, and we would have made a miss. So I'm gonna ask big, and this is about time too. I mean, I ask people to do substantial volunteer roles in our church that take a lot of time. It's not just about money. And sometimes they'll say, I don't think I can do that, but I can do this. And particularly in a volunteer organization, I tell our people all the time, we should take what people are willing to give us. And most of the time, their yes is going to be received by gratitude from us, and we'll rock on from there. But I do think that the skill is I have to be able to make an ask. So I'll finish this part by saying, if you're a leader, or and this goes, by the way, this also translates to the secular world, because a lot of times you're in an organization, maybe you're trying to grow your organization, maybe you can't quite compete salary-wise with the Googles of the world.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Who have unlimited funding. And but the product you have is making a difference. So you sit down with someone and you would just acknowledge it. I know I can't pay you like Tesla.
Right.
But if you'll come with me, we're going to make a real difference. Here's how. And I always, where I can, I'll also say this, and particularly if it's a hire, I'll say, I will do the best. You have my word. I will treat you as fairly as we can. Probably we're never going to be able to pay you like Tesla,
right? But
I'm going to do the best I can. And people will respect that. So I do think you have to be able to, in any segment, if you're a leader, you have to have clear, concise, compelling vision that you've refined, and you have to be able to make the ask for people to come with you.
Yeah, and I think this is where we actually have an advantage, we believe anyway, in this, like, church and ministry outside of business or something else. That, I mean, I genuinely feel like anytime I ask somebody to do something, I'm giving them a gift.
It is a gift.
And I'm not just saying that.
That's right.
Because I want them to say yes.
Right.
Like, literally, I believe that if you say yes to what I'm asking you to do, your life will be changed.
That's right.
By it.
Not only will people's lives be changed,
you'll help
but your
lives.
life will be changed.
Your life will be transformed. That's as well. And so, in that way, I try and never feel bad to ask somebody, even for something big.
That's right.
I feel like the bigger it is, the more of a blessing it is.
It is.
At the end of the day.
And that really is true.
Right.
And I do think a lot of people miss out. Because they either didn't get asked, and shame on organizations, including ours, when we fail to make an ask of someone who's waiting for it.
Right.
I know there are people who are waiting for an ask
because we basically say no for them.
We say no for them. I always say that. Don't say no for them.
Yeah.
We have a the only elected body in our church called the steering team, and they're like the board of directors of our church. I report to the steering team, and every year we do this nomination process where we try to figure out who we're going to ask to serve on. Somebody rolls off every year. They serve 3-year terms, and every year when we put names on the board, someone says, "Well, Bill's just real busy. I don't think he's going to say yes." And I always say the same thing. I say, Bill's a big boy, and Bill gets to decide.
Yeah.
But we're not going to decide for him. If we feel like that this is God's calling on his life to come lead us for the next 3 years, we're going to do our part and ask him.
Right.
And Bill can do his part and say yes or no.
Right.
So I do think you're right. We should not be in the habit of saying no for people.
But Bill will never be able to say, "Oh, I would have said yes if somebody had just asked."
That's exactly right.
Right. So we have vision.
Yep.
We have making the ask.
Yep.
And then we have.
All right. So the third one is the team, and we spent a lot of time talking about this
We did,
in the first session of this series,
Correct.
First episode.
Yep.
Is that right?
Mhm.
So I won't spend a lot of time here, except to say the team is absolutely critical. So you're making asks of people to join your organization and to serve in some way, or to give to it, or to come on board as an employee, or whatever. When it comes to your team, though, this is critical, and you're asking people to walk alongside you, to actually walk through fire with you. I like to paint a realistic picture. So when I'm asking people to join the team, I try to kind of go overboard in terms of this is what this is going to look like.
Yeah.
It's going to be costly. There are going to be times when, you recently, how long ago did you join our strategic leadership team?
Probably 2 or 3 years ago, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're the person, the newest person there. And, I tried to be super honest with you. This is going to take some time.
I was thinking about that when you're talking about it.
And it's going to cost time with your family. And yet the other side of it is we need your voice. Particularly, you were younger. We needed somebody in.
I was young?
You were young. Well,
okay.
well, I guess you still are, kinda. But I mean, that's quickly fading.
Yeah, that's
anyway.
True. That's true.
But you would help shape the future of our church in a way that you couldn't without being in this seat.
Yeah.
And so the team is just critical. We spent a whole session on it. Maxwell wrote one of his books is the 17 something or other laws of teamwork. Right.
Yeah.
Irrefutable, indisputable. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good. But anyway, this is a skill you have to develop, both the cultivating, the recruiting of, if you will, the team, and then also the shepherding of the team, the leading of the team.
Right.
And we try to function, you mentioned this earlier, we try to function like we're a round table, but at the end of the day, there's always a leader of a team. I know of churches that have experimented with this. We don't really have anyone particularly in charge. We lead this, we co-lead it together. And I always say, and it never works, by the way. Ultimately, it works in the short run.
Right.
But at the end of the day, somebody has to make a call.
Right.
You're not always everybody. The Spirit of God does not make us all think alike at all the time.
Right.
So there are times when there has to be someone that's designated to be the person that says, okay, we have to make a call. I'm making it.
Right. And to your point, I think in the last episode, we record these in bulk. So
right.
I'm pretty sure it was in the last episode. It wasn't in this one. But even if you say we're all co-leading this together, that's not what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in the room,
right,
whether they realize it or not,
right,
is really the de facto leader.
That's right.
And so, you definitely.
I think there's a way to
sign that person.
to create. I mean, it's certainly not a dictatorship.
Yeah, of course.
You're making decisions together and all that, but the idea of a completely round leaderless team is just a fantasy. That's not real.
At some point, somebody has to say, we've talked about everything.
Right.
I've heard from everybody.
Right.
I really appreciate it. I've weighed it. This is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing.
Because you will never land on that.
That's
if
right.
you truly all had, especially a good team with, our SLT strategic leadership team has 7.
That's right.
Get 7 people on exactly the same page.
Yeah.
About every single detail.
You want the different voices in the room.
Yeah.
So and that necessarily means you're not going to always think alike. But I think both the gathering of knowing who to put on the team, how to lead the team, all of that is a skill. That's what we're talking about today. That a great leader needs to cultivate.
Right. So vision, making the ask, forming the team, and leading it, and lastly
is discernment. So there's a lot that has been written about this, and so the ability to make a decision is always grounded in 2 places. One of them is the data. and the other is the intuitive or the intuition component. Leaders that only lead with data miss something that data can't see. Leaders that only lead with their gut miss something that facts will point out to them.
Yeah.
And so great leaders combine the facts with intuition to cultivate discernment. In the church world, in what we do, and I would argue this really for any follower of Jesus, we put this third component, and that is the movement of the Spirit of God in us, which for me kind of becomes the intuitive piece of it.
Yeah.
What this means is that sometimes you're making decisions, not often, but sometimes you're making a decision that flies in the face of conventional wisdom.
Right. Or even maybe some of the data you have.
Or maybe some of the data. And so there are a few things about this. One is if you've led your team well, you have the ability to say, guys, I know this doesn't make any sense, and I know you're not completely in agreement with me, but I'm asking you to come with me. There's something about this I just know. Now, if you do that, you better be right.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, it's okay. It doesn't completely destroy your leadership. But if you do it 2 or 3 times in a row and you're wrong, you're probably done. So and then what it'll do is it'll make you where you can't pull a trigger. So it'll paralyze you. So I am very careful. If I'm going to lead with my gut and let the gut sort of outrank the data, then I need to know that I'm right. And that has happened with me probably 3 or 4 times in my career where I have gone against every piece of conventional wisdom and everything else. It just didn't make any sense. And then it turned out that it's worked. And I would accredit that to the voice of God.
Sure.
We're trying to pay attention. We're trying to listen to the voice of God. And when you do that and it goes well, now you increase your credibility. So your team's going, oh my gosh, last time I thought he was crazy, but it turned out amazing. So I'm going with him again, kind of thing. But again, you can abuse that. And I think leaders that abuse that are taking that into a totally different direction.
You mentioned that, I think this was in our last episode, that as Maxwell points out, everyone is a leader.
Yeah.
Because it's at its heart, it's influence.
Right.
And everybody has some level of influence. I feel like when we talk about things like going with your gut or whatever, and again, in our case, sort of following the Spirit, do you feel like that's something that some people just have or can be cultivated? I would assume you think the latter because anybody can maybe do it. But I feel like, I guess culturally, whenever we talk about that idea, it feels like some people are just better at it. And I think that's true of data as well, but we don't see that necessarily because data's numbers, it's points, and anybody could train themselves to go find those, right? Maybe they're not as adept with it or anything like that. But I feel like the whole follow your gut thing, we talk about, I don't mean we as in you and I, but just in general, talk about as something that some people just have.
Yeah, I think it's probably both. And it's been a while since I've read Maxwell. Maxwell talks about this, since I've read his a conversation on it. Also, Jim Collins talks about this a good bit too. But I think it's a little bit of both. Did you ever watch Criminal Minds?
I mean, like here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a character on Criminal Minds. He was a genius, and his name was Spencer. And Spencer had the ability. Interestingly, Elijah, you talked about finding the data.
Yeah.
It isn't about finding the data. It's about analyzing the data.
Mm-hmm.
It's about interpreting the data.
Yeah.
And some people are inherently better at that.
Yeah.
So Spence, they would do these things where they put all these numbers in front of you, and you could almost see what was happening in his head. And he could sort through these intricate puzzles and see the solution.
Yeah.
There was another show we used to watch a long, long time ago. It's called Numbers, and they had a character in it that just could do that. They could see through all the numbers and catch the pattern, catch the solution, the analytics to it. It isn't about really the data. It's about the interpretation of the data.
Using it.
And some people are better at that.
Yeah.
They really are. But some people have also this gift of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have this sense. Now, when it comes to the voice of God, I would say that anybody can cultivate a relationship with God where they hear God's voice more clearly.
Right.
And if that's true, and I believe that it is true, then I don't think that's something that you're just born with
Some
or not
people have
born
or
with.
not. Right.
I do think that there are people that are better at interpreting what's happening. It's not just about the data either. Reading the room,
Right.
understanding what's happening in the moment, all of that. There are people that are they're just good at that.
Yeah.
And frankly, I want those people on my team.
Yeah.
So, and I'm paying attention to them. There are, we're about out of time, so I'll just wrap this part up with this and say, there are people who've come into my office and said, I've heard a word from God for you. And I think I've mentioned this at one podcast before. Anyway, there are two kinds of people that do that. And one of them is crazy. I don't know what they're talking about. And I don't believe that I respect them. I'm going to listen. I'm going to be kind and polite, but I'm going to completely disregard.
Right.
There's another kind of person when they walk in my office and say, I feel like I've heard a word from the Lord from you. I'm going to get on my knees and I'm going to absorb every piece of it.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we're able to parse out the person that just says they have this gut intuition,
right,
and the person that's earned the credibility where you're really paying attention to them, and that's the person I want around me, and I want to hear from them.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to continue this leadership series over the next several weeks, so stay tuned in. As always, thank you for being a part of it. Like, share, follow, subscribe, comment, all the things. We really want to hear from you, and we're really grateful up to this point that you're still listening, that you're still with us. So thank you for that, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah,
as
been
always.
Fun.
It's been fun, and we'll see y'all next time.